Well, good morning, CLC.
Good morning.
As you probably see from my appearance here, Danielle is off. She'll be off for a couple of weeks. She's on a trip. So I invite you now to just move along with the music and just, if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Just let it out slowly. And simply be here right now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin the inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. And now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling by touching your chest with your hand. And allow these words to act for your own inner acceptance and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging the higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of the infinite presence, I simply speak these words. I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, now I say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only constructive, positive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week, visualizing the idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled, and gratefully speak these words, I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace and fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. And now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me, a family member, friend, mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways, someone who's not physically present in the room this morning, and perhaps not even on the planet anymore. And I turn towards that image in my mind and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. I now open my eyes to the world around me and joyfully to say to the person next to me and share my gratitude with them by saying, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
If you didn't know before now, today's about gratitude. Specifically, it's about the last couple of stanzas of this inner healing experience that you heard David read to you a moment ago. And it wraps up with a feeling of gratitude. And last week we set the table for that when we were talking about forgiveness and release and looking at regrets and looking at resentments, looking at the spiritual psychology of the matter. And as I've been saying all month and pretty much ever, there's no problem between us and God. God has never looked down on any of us and found us wanting. But there can be, it doesn't have to be, but there can be an issue in how we look at ourselves, how we interpret ourselves. And that can gum up the works because it's done to us, we are told, and rightly so, as we believe. It's not done to us as we should believe, as we used to believe, or as maybe one day we will believe, but as we believe today about ourselves and about each other. And that's the fine point I want to get into today, is that in the eyes of spirit, there's no difference between you and anybody else. In the work of consciousness, there's no difference between you and anybody else. This is why when you hear things like forgive your enemies, it's not just good practice. It's not just doing the right thing. It's not just kindly overlooking other people's shortcomings. It's a shortcut to our own spiritual development, because when I resent you or anybody out there, when I have unhealed energy, let's say, between myself and anybody else out there, my subconscious mind interprets that as being about me, about all creation, but specifically me. You see what I'm saying? So I can't compartmentalize consciousness. And trust me, I have tried. And all of us try. All of us try to get away with stuff, you know, where it's like, well, nobody will ever really know how I feel about this because I'm not going to be foolish enough to say anything about it, but you wear it on your sleeve. Emerson in particular was one who brought this up, where he said the whole world is made of glass. The whole world is made of glass. The stuff that we carry around as unhealed, unresolved issues presents itself in the world, which is the purpose of something like this inner healing experience to address. To get to the place where we have clarity when we go into our spiritual work. And we say, I wish the highest good for everyone on this planet. Can you actually get to the point where you say that? And mean it. And mean it. And you're not like doing it because something's watching you do it. And God, you see me doing this? I'm doing the right thing here. I'm being a big person. You know, no. You're doing it sincerely, or the word that's current now is authentically. You're doing it authentically from the heart to the world. Blessing absolutely everybody. The first thing I thought of this morning, I got up and I looked at my news feed, which is not a good way to start the day, but I looked at my news feed because I am concerned about the Pope. The Pope is very ill, if you have not heard. So ill that they're not saying exactly how ill he is. And I thought of all the Catholics whose spiritual leader this man is. And I pass a Catholic church every time I come to this place, the path that I take. And if I took a different path, I'd pass a different Catholic church, because there are a lot of them out there. And I thought, here are, hundreds of millions of people, or 1 billion. I don't know how many Catholics there are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there were 20. If there were 20 Catholics, their spiritual leader is gravely ill. And they're upset about this. And I want to bless him. I want to bless him. So I took him into my prayer work. I didn't realize, I heard he had a cold, and then it went to pneumonia. And so this morning I took him into my prayer work and I blessed him. And the reason I did that was because if I had a spiritual leader, if I were part of an organization that had we do technically have a spiritual leader, but she doesn't have quite the thrust the Pope has, let's put it that way. But if there were someone who was interpreting doctrine for me, if there was somebody who literally was in the shoes of St. Peter and all that kind of thing, in my spiritual life, and they were that ill, I would be bereft. And I would love to know that people were praying for them who were not of my faith. And you know what? All prayers work. All prayers work if you work them. All prayers work if you believe them. And Roman Catholics have a long and storied history of prayer using the rosary, you know, a whole system of prayer that you go through that's, I admire, frankly. I admire, because sometimes it's difficult for us in religious science to gather our thoughts enough to whip up a good treatment. You know, we kind of wander all over the map, and am I meditating, or am I treating, or am I looking out the window, or, you know, but you work a rosary, and it's like, now you do this, now you do this, and here are the words, and you don't even have to think of the words. When I do spiritual mind treatment, I have to think up my own words. Don't you? You know? That's why you'll hear people say, well, I can't treat like so-and-so does because they have great words. Well, maybe they've been treating longer than you have, or I don't know, they're just word people. Not everybody's a word person, but it's useful sometimes to have a little prayer that's all written out. Unity has these too. They have, or used to have, a little thing that you could glue on the dashboard of your car. And it said something like, the white light of God surrounds and protects this car and its occupants. Isn't that nice? You sit there driving, or you sit there as the passenger, and you look at this thing on the dashboard, and you feel good about it. The divine white light of God surrounds and protects this car and its occupants. You don't have to think that up. There it is right there for you. You just have to buy into it. So a form of prayer that's repeatable and demonstrable and so on can be shared. It's a useful kind of thing. But anyway, back to the Pope. So I'm not a Catholic. I've never been a Catholic. I had a Catholic education. It was very good. And I appreciate it to this day very much, you know, but it's not my scene. It's just not my scene. So what? So what? There are a lot of things that aren't my scene. There are a lot of political things that aren't my scene. There are a lot of economic things that are, and on and on. There are a lot of people out there who believe things I don't. And if I start parsing them that way and say, well, I'm not praying for you because you don't believe the way I do. We're not going to the same heaven, you and I. You know, there's the red heaven and the blue heaven. No, if I start thinking that way, you know what that's called? Practicing the absence of God. Practicing the absence of God. Practicing a sense of separation. The whole thing we're here to heal is a sense of separation. This is what Ernest Holmes said. I love this. I've told you this many times, but when asked, what is it that we heal? Ernest Holmes had two replies that he would give. All right, what is it that we heal? The first thing he would say, well, depending on who asked him and when, you know, first thing he would say is that we heal the belief that there's anything that needs healing. That's very Zen-like, isn't it? It's the sound of one hand clapping. We heal the belief that there's anything that needs healing because the belief that something needs healing is an investment in its supposed negative state. It's an investment in its problematic nature. So we suspend that belief. That was answer number one. Answer number two, which I personally find more useful than that, is the one thing that we heal is our sense of separation from our source. Because when I feel fully united with my source, I can't help but feel fully united with you and him and her and them. It just follows. It just follows. To feel united with my source. To feel united with my source means not simply that I stay in my familiar little cocoon and feel united with it, but I go abroad in the world and I feel united with everyone I meet and every condition and every circumstance that occurs. I find God in that. I look for God in that. I look for the good and I praise it in that. I look for the good and I praise it in that. Is this easy to do? No. Let's own it. No, it's not easy to do. You know why it's not easy to do? Because we weren't taught to do it. We were trained to find the problem in this situation. Isolate, solve for X. You know, find the problem and figure it out. And we got rewarded for that. Are you a problem solver? Here's a cookie. Okay, here's a reward. You're a good problem solver. Earth needs more problem solvers. You know what problem solvers need? Problems. Lots and lots of problems. You know what a problem solver will do if there aren't any problems around? They'll start one. They'll mess stuff up, right? It's like if you're trying to be all peaceful and stuff and you get bored with peace, you're going to reach out and pinch the person next to you, and all of a sudden there's trouble. And it's like, oh, well, this is familiar. Trouble. I know trouble. I can deal with trouble because peacefulness is like a whole new territory for me. We were not taught to look for the good and praise it. We were taught sectarianism, which is a $2 way of saying that we were taught that here in our family and here in our faith system and here in our school district and whatever, we've got it going on. We are the right people. Okay? And those people over there doing whatever it is they do, they wish they were us because we're the right people, but they're not. Now, they could be, and maybe we'll even work on that and try to convert them into something or other. But, and meanwhile, those people that we're having this conversation about are saying more or less the same thing about us or the next people over the next hill, and on you go. And pretty soon you have this tribal, local, suspicious, angry kind of meltdown society where nobody really trusts anybody else. And if somebody comes along who's different from you, and you're tempted to trust them, a little warning light goes on in the back of your head. It's like, what do they want from me? Why are they pretending to be so nice when they're really trying to get over on me? All of which is highly stylized and very inventive separation. So we live in that space of separation until we don't. And I maintain that you're in this room today because you're tired of living in that kind of separation, or you're watching today from wherever you are, or you're involved in something like what we're doing here, which does not make us better than the people in the next place or the Catholics up the street or the Baptists next door or anything else. It just means that this is a place where we don't believe in separation. You know who else? I got to do this, and it seems like a cheap strategy, but you know who else didn't believe in separation? Is Jesus Christ. Now, it's probably cheesy of me to bring him up in this space and say, well, like he would endorse what we're doing here, because that sounds like real dismissive of whatever else is going on out there. But read his words. Read the red ink. Read the red ink in the Gospels. And all the time, his disciples and the general public were ganging up on other people out there, Samaritans for one. And he would say, no, wait, stop, let one among you who's without, let them throw the first. You know all this, right? He was constantly breaking up fights. Wasn't he? He was constantly stepping between parties and saying, wait, let us reason together. Let us reason together. I admire that about him. And so did the New Thought founders. And they said, maybe this was the key to his healing power. Now, that's a large thought. Maybe it wasn't that he was the only begotten Son of God who was sent here to sacrifice himself on the cross for all the rest of us and shed his blood that we're washed in. That maybe that may have happened. That wasn't maybe the main point. Maybe the main point was he was here to teach us effective spiritual psychology. He said, watch this. Watch this. Watch what somebody with enough faith in the power that they call Abba, their father, literally Papa. That was how close he felt to his source. Look at what somebody who has that kind of relationship can do. And so he manifested, and he did phenomenology, okay, like walking on water and stuff, manipulated the manifestation. There's a formal term for that called precipitation, which we've had a lot of lately here. But it means where you pull stuff out of thin air. Oh, a multitude? You're hungry? Food, How was he able to do that? Not because he had special powers, not because he had special gifts, but because he had special clarity. He had special clarity that all people are one. All life is one. And he tried to show this to others. And all these years later, we're still trying to figure that out. And when it gets too hard for us, when we think too much, and our head starts to hurt, looking at the spiritual psychology, we think, oh, heck, it's just easier to worship him. Just let him do it for us. Just let him. I believe in you, Jesus. Great. I got my card stamped. It's like my parking validated or whatever in this life. And so now I'm good to go. Because it's the easy way out. But that isn't what he offered us, the easy way out. said, these things that I do, you shall do also. And we're like, ooh, great, cool, you know. But these things, to do these things, greater things than he did even, these things that he did and greater things also that we must do, require us rising to a higher level. He didn't have a news feed every day. Okay? He heard the word on the street. He didn't have constant bombardment, sensory bombardment of stuff coming at him 6 ways from Sunday. We do, thanks to technology. So it's a little harder for us. Then the job is harder. I never forget, I saw a movie one time. I won't tell you the whole story because it's kind of pointless. But in it, a woman is needing a tutor for her son. And she says to the tutor, I want you to do this and this and this to help him. And the tutor says, well, you've just made my job more difficult. And she looks him right in the eye. This is a mother, okay? She looks him right in the eye and she says, then your job is more difficult. Then your job is more difficult. Then our spiritual work is more difficult. Every time there's bad news, it's more difficult. Every time there's a loss, every time there's suffering that we see, we're like, oh, God, I thought I was past this, and our shoulders slump and this heavy weight comes over us. Then our job is more difficult. You know what? It's still our job. You guys go, I realize a lot of you are retired now, but you did go to jobs, if you're not going to them now, that were sometimes difficult. Everyone in the workforce goes to, you don't want to go to work every day. You don't want to do everything that's put in front of you to do. You have to have difficult conversations and stuff, but you know what? You're a pro. You're a pro at what you do. And so it's more difficult, you do it. I got to be honest with you. I am not a morning person. Now, we don't have a 9:30 service anymore, and that's great. And 11 is, brunch time and stuff. But there's some Sundays when I get up and say, I don't know what I want to say today. I don't know. I have notes written and stuff, but I don't know if anybody's interested in this. And then you know what I do? I stand in front of the mirror and I slap myself, not literally, but I kind of pull it together. You got a job to do. And I have a wonderful job, and I love it. Not everybody has a wonderful job that they love. And so their life is more difficult than mine in that respect. But the remedy is the same. You do the thing, which is what brings us to gratitude. Gratitude, we were not taught a lot of stuff that would have been useful, and we were taught a lot of stuff that was junk. Well, gratitude, we've been taught gratitude is responsive and reactive. If somebody does something nice for you, it's just good manners to thank them. If they do something really extravagant for you, you sit down and write them a note. Okay? And it was left at that. And so, given that scenario, we sit there and we wait for somebody to do something for us. And we wait, and the seasons, right? And we say, well, if only people would be nicer to me, I'd thank them. And I tell you, I would thank them, I'd cook them dinner. I'd really go out of my way to thank them. But so far, everybody's been pretty much not that, just average. Well, that's a complete misunderstanding of the spiritual psychology of gratitude. Gratitude is proactive. You sit there and you feel grateful and you magnetize toward yourself people and conditions and situations that are beneficial to you, that are salutary to you. And you do not have to pick out who is going to deliver your good. That's another misunderstanding that we have about this. It's like, I want joy in my life, and I want it to come from you specifically. Not him or her or them, but you. And if you're not willing to provide it, well, then I have no options. I'm out of luck. No, you can't move people around that way. It's limiting to you, and it's manipulative to them. None of this works. If you say instead, I'm grateful for the good in my life. And you notice that what David read was not specific. You sit there and you say, well, what kind of good are we talking about? Is it financial good? Is it my health improves? Is it my relationships are better? Didn't say, did it? No, just I'm grateful for the good. I'm grateful for the good. I'm sitting, nothing has changed. Not another event has occurred, but I sit here and I'm grateful for the good. And as if by magic, I am magnetizing toward myself greater good. And I am magnetizing myself toward greater good that direction. In other words, I am being led. It's not just all drifting toward me, but I'm being led toward greater and greater good. Sometimes that good presents itself under the name of good. It shows up and it's a big win and it's an obvious win and we say fantastic. And sometimes it shows up as a Rubik's Cube. Sometimes, right? Sometimes it shows up as a puzzle. And you've got to put it together. Sometimes it requires stretching your imagination. Sometimes it brings new problems with it. Levels of fear, uncertainty, self-doubt, as in the example often given of, so you want to be a rock and roll star. You know, that kind of thing, right? You know the song, right? You want to be a rock and roll star? Well, get a guitar and learn how to play. And then, you know, everything follows from that. And all of a sudden you have the guitar and it's like, oh, now I have to learn how to play this. You want to do something, you got to learn some things. You want to be an astronaut? Well, there's a plan for that. There's a program for that. You can't just jump right into it, climb on, well, maybe now you can if you have enough money, but you know what I mean. You want to be a brain surgeon or something. Well, there's a plan for that. You can't just say, hey, I'd like to try that. It's like, no. That's not how it works. And so you say, well, I'll tell you something more closer to what I know is somebody came to me years ago. This has happened more than once, but I remember the one time in particular, somebody came in, and it was their first time at Creative Life. We were still upstairs, you know, and they said, oh, I really enjoyed this. Is wonderful, and they went on, and you know, very complimentary. And they said, I think I would like to do this. I really think I would like to be a religious science minister, an ordained religious science minister. How long does that take? And I said, so you're brand new at this, yeah? You haven't had any classes, or you just walked in first time. I looked at it, I said 10 years. And that's if you don't take summers off. Okay, 10, okay. Well, never heard from them again about that, you know, because there's a process. And there are people who go through the process and they fly through it and it feels like no time has passed at all, and they have such joy in it because they meet amazing people and they learn cool stuff, and it's just great. And that's how you know you're in your right lane. That's how you know you're in your right lane, as if the suffering or deprivation or sacrifice or whatever it is that you go through in your particular field of endeavor, you don't even notice that. All you notice is the gleaming, shiny object ahead of you called success, called getting to do what you want to do and having the right to say that you do it, you know. So what I encourage you to do, two things. One is, I brought up last week, and probably every week in this, is if you're looking for the science of mind equivalent of the rosary beads, if you're looking for words that somebody else has come up with that are nice and pleasant and useful and strong, try this inner healing experience. You've got a copy in your program. Those of you watching online, look in the comments and wherever. It's on our Facebook page a lot of different ways, and YouTube and stuff. If you want to change it, go right ahead. We did. This was Jack Boland's mastermind process, and we tweaked it. He said mastermind, and I thought that might be a little creepy to new people who come in a center and they're here. I know the mastermind is, you know, and they're kind of, so we soften it a little bit, source and spirit, and, you know, words that are a little more, I don't know, approachable to people. So tweak it, change it, however you want. If you say, well, I don't want to use somebody else's script, then write your own, but follow it. Write your own, but follow it. Pick it up, use it, do this every day. Have a regular spiritual practice where you do this. The other thing I strongly recommend is practice unconditional, proactive gratitude as you go around in the world. Expect things to work out. That's a form of gratitude. Expect things to work out. You know how sometimes we go in places and we think, boy, I sure hope they don't burn my meal this time, or you know, my dry cleaning gets handed back to me with stains still, or whatever. We have this, you know, the car dealer or stuff, the people we suspect, and they're trying to put one over, and we get all beady-eyed and suspicious and all like that. You know what that's doing? It's saying to the universe, here's somebody who could use some really random problems today to get in their way and slow them down and kind of rob them of their joy and certainly their momentum. Is that the message that we want to send out? I remember the late, great Dick Schmeltzkopf. Some of you know. He used to say about negative statements like that people make. You know, he says, is that what you want to create in your life? That right there? Now, I could go on and on about this today, but I won't. But just understand that I don't feel good is not a negative statement of that nature. That's an authentic statement. I'm not happy is an authentic statement. I'm not happy with you is an authentic statement. This is not something you want to bottle up and squish and not feel. What I'm talking about is not a sincere emotional reaction that you have to things, but this expectancy of trouble that's based on nothing except maybe a little past history, but mostly it's other people's testimony. Well, they tell you that you can't trust lawyers or whatever, and so you have to deal with one, and you have this energy. No, look at this and say, Spirit and I are working on this together. We're in partnership, and so is this other party that we're dealing with here. Everyone is on the same page. Everyone wants the highest good. Do you know that for a fact? No, but you do know it for a truth, and that's the difference. You do know it for a truth, that at the deepest possible, lowest common or highest common denominator with everyone, everyone is working for the greatest good of all concerned, doing the best that they can, knowing what they know at this moment. So let's know together now, there is one life, one power, one presence. And I affirm and know that power and presence is here within us. It's within all people everywhere. It's within the supreme pontiff of the Roman Catholic Church. It's within everyone who is in change this morning. Everyone who's in any kind of turmoil or upset. Everyone who is in a sweet, blissful place of joy. And everyone in between. I affirm and know that this one life, this one power, is mighty to heal. It's doing what needs to be done through each one of us. At the same time, I know that there is nothing within any of us that would stand in its way. No guilt, no shame, no resentment, no regret, no unhealed emotional or psychological issues of any sort to interfere. And we invite anything that puts up its hand and asks to be called on in our consciousness, we invite it to testify. We invite it into the light. Say, tell me what I need to know about myself. Tell me where I hid my power. Because I may have hidden it someplace and lost track where that was. Maybe there's an experience or an event at some point in my past where I gave up. Well, now I hold it up to the light. And the scars are healed. And a whole new day dawns for me. As I know this about myself, I know it about everyone else too. And I say to them, I am grateful for the good in your life. Whether I understand it, whether it's what I would have chosen for myself, whether I covet it, whether some part of me wonders whether you deserve it, all of that jabber I just set aside and let my gratitude flow, that life is good for you. Because when it's good for you, it shows me it can be better for me. for we are all in this together. For this knowing, for the way that it manifests in form, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
Invite you to take your gift in hand, either literally or metaphorically, because we have a number of ways that you can donate. There is a PayPal link that you can use. You can sign up in the bookstore for a once a month donation on your credit card, or you can, Mark's back there with a basket. So I would encourage you to take your gift in hand and join me in saying, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is. To let you know who the practitioners of the day are. It was 12 years for me. I set foot in here, and it was 12 years before I went. No, that's when I graduated from ministerial school. It took me 8 years. I took a summer off. So I turned up here in 2005 and went to ministerial school in 2013 and graduated in 17, so 12 years. Yeah, I took a summer off. Practitioners are... Well, no, I know who they are. What I'm trying to is, I'm trying to get the words to what a practitioner is, because one of the most amazing things about being a Science of Mind minister is, as a Science of Mind minister, I consider myself a practitioner first, because we practice, and we practice every day, and we love to practice for you. It is a service that we provide because we are answering that call from Jesus to do what he did. Come, all of these things that I do, you will do, and more. Well, that's one of the things that practitioners do. They've answered that call from Jesus to know for you. That's what I was looking for. So the practitioner of the day in the room is Marissa, as you saw her waving. And the practitioner online is Reverend Dana. So we are practitioners first. Please feel free to avail yourself of that service. And I don't think I ever put the link in chat, so I'm hoping that somebody in the chat will put that link up for online. Sorry about that. I do miss Danielle, and I'm hoping she's having a great time. Now, last responsibility is that practitioner thing, where I get to do that treatment. But I'm going to throw back to Meister Eckhart. If the only prayer you say is thank you, it will be enough. I'm not going to cheat, though, and stop there. What I'm going to do is invite you to take a nice deep breath. Breathe it all the way down. And as you release your breath, relax. And consciously step with me into the sacred, knowing that it is all sacred all the time. But we are now opening that conscious connection with that source of our being, and knowing that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. That I live that life, that I am a source of that presence. I am a channel for that love. I am a channel for that power. And as I know this about myself, so too do I know it about each and every one of you. That we are divine channels. And when we open up consciously into being that divine channel, amazing things happen. Love looks like healing. And healing looks like love. And so I am knowing, as we hold space with our Catholic brothers and sisters, with our Catholic siblings, that I am knowing that they are held in the peace of that one love as they go through this experience. I don't know what healing looks like for the Pope, but I can know that he is held in the peace and comfort of the one divine love. And that each and every one of us is held similarly, always in that everlasting arms that stretch out towards infinity. And that we stand and hold each other, and that we stand and look in each other's eyes, and we see that love looking back at us. And in those small moments, we hear Jesus echoing in our head, there's work to do. And you have the power to do it. And I relax into that knowing, into that amazing thing that we call gratitude. That gratitude that looks like love. That gratitude that feels like love. That gratitude that shakes the rafters and reminds us who we are. I am grateful for a teaching that teaches me who I am. I am grateful for this community that comes together to remind each other who we are. I am grateful for our ministers, our practitioners, our musicians. I am grateful for each and every one of you. I am grateful for the technology that allows this to spread it out across the United States and the world and into the ethers. And I relax and release my word into love, knowing that it is done. And so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it. I trust it. I use it. And I love it. And so it is. All right. Iko, huh?